I'm Sarah Colvin, and I'm very pleased to be joined in studio with the Public Information Officer for the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, Peter Judge. Peter, thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure, Sarah.
And we've always been grateful to have you on the show. Of course, it's not stormy out there right now, but we are in hurricane season, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what the outlook is and then go into what people can do to be prepared. So what are we looking at in terms of storms for this season?
Well, the actual forecast calls for a less than normal amount of storms, but that being said, it only takes one. I mean, people also say it's been so long, it's been 24 years since we've had a serious hurricane here, Hurricane Bob in '91, but that particular year, there were only 4 named storms. And Bob, which obviously was the only second hurricane of the season, really was very destructive. So for us, the number is really not relevant. Maybe if you live in the Gulf Coast or in Florida, the odds pretty good you're going to get hit a few times. Up here, it's only going to take one.
Indeed.
And it doesn't have to be a hurricane either. As we've seen in the past, some of our greatest amount of flooding, greatest amount of damage has been when these hurricanes have kind of lessened down to tropical storm status, but still cause a lot of damage.
Indeed, or even a nor'easter. I remember the no-name storm, which happened around the same time as Hurricane Bob, did some pretty significant damage to us here on the Cape.
Right, that was in '91 as well, around Halloween, and again, wasn't even a hurricane per se, but obviously there was, again, millions of dollars worth of damage, particularly on the Cape.
Of course, and being in a coastal area, being in a fragile environment like Cape Cod, it's always important for people to be ready. And as you say, while the predictions may be coming in that it's a less than normal active season, you never know what's going to happen.
Exactly right. The one good thing, if there is a good thing to say about hurricanes, is we get plenty of warning. So in that regard, it's usually something that's coming up the coast. We usually have multiple days to prepare, to make decisions whether we're going to stay or leave, that sort of thing. So in that regard, when we get into this hurricane season, people really should just really pay very close attention when things are happening south of us.
Great. So we've kind of got a 4-pronged approach to being aware and getting ready for hurricane season, the first of which is to be informed. So what's the best way for people to get informed, and what kind of information should they have?
Well, there's all types of information. In the past couple of years, MEMA's worked with the Army Corps of Engineers, FEMA, and local officials, and we've developed a Know Your Zone map on our website, which is mass.gov/MEMA. And you go to the Know Your Zone section, and it gives you an idea of what sort of areas would be potentially evacuated if we had a Category 1 or 2 storm, or God forbid, a 3 or 4 storm. So people at least would have an idea of the potential of where they either work or live or are vacationing, and have an idea potentially if this comes in, we may be asked to leave, or maybe we're not even going to wait to be asked to leave. Now would be a good time to leave. Other ways, we have an app, a free iPhone app, Massachusetts Alerts, which we constantly are pushing out emergency information as well as warnings from the National Weather Service. But also the traditional listen to the radio, watch the television. Also, many communities have their own individual ways to reach out to people, sort of reverse 911, code red, those type of things. So there's multiple ways to find information. And even during and after the storm, if you have any questions, you have any issues, 211, or it's called Mass 211, but you just dial 211. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week service that will help people answer questions, point you in the right direction, and it's a really great service, a really great partner for us.
Great. So be informed. Second is to make a plan, and this is something that every individual or family should have ready in case the storm is to come. So tell me a little bit about what people can do to make a plan. What goes into a good plan?
Sure. Well, first of all, a good communication plan, because not everybody is sitting around the dinner table when a disaster strikes, and we want to be able to communicate with each other. We always recommend people in the family or extended group decide on somebody outside of the area as a contact person. Aunt Susie in Schenectady, New York, who maybe is not going to be impacted by this event. And everybody can kind of just check in, because during a disaster, during these things, sometimes you just can't get a hold of each other. So that's a good way for people to check in, because more times than not, the angst of worrying about your friends and neighbors and family is probably more important than the actual disaster itself. But also have a plan on where you're going to meet if you are separated. sort of a two-pronged event. One is, if it's a localized event, we'll meet down at the mall, we'll meet at the library, we'll meet at Jimmy's house. But if it's something where you're going to be evacuating the area, whatever, then find some place outside the area that everybody is going to be able to meet and reunite.
Absolutely. Anything else that should go into that plan? I mean, it seems pretty straightforward. Have a communications plan, know where to meet, and know who your kind of communications lead people are, who's going to be making the phone calls and calling the shots.
And part of the plan also is how you're going to get there. Again, that know your zone map, look at that map and line it up with your potential evacuation route. Is your route going to take you through an area that's going to be underwater? So maybe you want to look at a plan B, plan C of how you're going to get where you want to get to.
Great. Build a kit. This is something that all of us here in Cape Cod should have in our homes. So what goes into a good hurricane preparedness kit?
Same thing, almost the same thing goes into 365-day-a-year kit here. Because essentially what it is, what you're going to need if you're isolated in your home for an extended period, 2, 3, 4-day period, without power, and maybe without the ability to go out and go to the store and go things because there are lines down, trees down, flooding, whatever. So every kit will be individual depending on the family group, but the main things you're going to need is certainly canned food, non-perishable food. If you have canned food, don't forget a manual can opener.
Very important.
Very important. You don't have to go after it with a hammer and some sort of screwdriver or something. You want to be able to get into it. Certainly bottled water. We recommend 1 gallon per person per day is always a good rule of thumb. First aid kit. If you have any specific medications, make sure you're up to date on them. The thing is, as I said about a hurricane, you're going to be warned. So in 2 or 3 days we may get hit. Now's a good time to look at your prescriptions. Oh, it's running out. Maybe now's a good time to have it refilled 2 or 3 days in advance, maybe you normally would. Depending on the makeup of the family, obviously if you have pets, extra pet food, those sorts of things, if you've got kids, if you've got infants, what sort of special needs anybody in the family may have, that all should be part of that kit that should be ready to go if in fact we end up with an event.
Absolutely, and batteries, flashlights, maybe
absolutely,
those crank radios too.
Yeah, flashlights, batteries, portable radio is certainly important to have. Don't recommend candles. That's always the potential for a secondary disaster there, particularly if you've got pets, kids, or clumsy adults like myself around. You don't want to cause another event with those flames.
I would think the last thing you want during a hurricane is a fire, for sure.
Absolutely.
And the last kind of facet of this is to get involved. And talk to me a little bit about how people can get involved. Is this getting involved with your community, helping others, helping neighbors? How does that work?
There's a lot of ways to get involved. First of all, get involved by reaching out to your local emergency management director and find out what the potential risks are for your community if an event does occur. You may find, I live relatively close to the ocean, but you live in an elevated area that really is probably not going to be impacted by either storm surge or even, river flooding, that type of thing. Or you may inversely think, I'm so far away from the shore, I'm not going to get bothered. So find out reach out to your local emergency management director. In addition, there are other opportunities. They have CERT programs in communities, people helping people, which is community emergency response teams. And you get a lot of training, get a lot of first aid training, get a lot of training to help, to assist, maybe in a shelter, that sort of thing. But again, be aware of what happens in your community and get involved whenever you can, because someone is going to need your help somewhere down the line.
Absolutely. Well, Peter, any other advice or information that you would like to get out there to our viewers as we go through this hurricane season and make sure that we want to be prepared and as safe as possible should anything occur?
Sure. I think the one last thing is we always tend to think of hurricanes as these big wind events, particularly on the Cape. But the reality of it is, more lives are lost, more injuries, more property is damaged by water than wind. And whether it's coastal as far as storm surge or away from the coast relative to freshwater flooding, that sort of thing. So be aware, just don't say, okay, the wind has died down, so this event is over. The event might just be starting for you if you're in an area that tends to flood. So again, educate yourself, prepare yourself, and we'll all make it through safely through the season.
Wonderful. And one more time, the website and then the app that people can download to help keep them informed and learn a little bit more about MEMA.
Sure, the MEMA website is just mass.gov/MEMA, MEMA. And you'll find anything and everything you want to know about hurricane preparedness on that website. But in addition to download the free app, and there's about 80,000 people or so who've done it so far in the Commonwealth, is just go to the App Store, and it's just Massachusetts Alerts is the name of the app. And again, you get some pretty timely information, which you'll appreciate if you ever get yourself in a situation.
Wonderful. Well, Peter, thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it, and hopefully everyone stays safe this hurricane season.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much. Peter Judge is the Public Information Officer for the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. Again, you can go to mass.gov/MEMA to learn more. For Barnstable This Morning, I'm Sarah Colvin.